Hello everyone, this is Linnell Gordon, and I am creating this screencast to help us save some time in our initial planning meetings. So I want to share some information with you today in this screencast that you'll already have, and then when you come to your meeting we can spend more time on questions. As you can see, here's the introduction. It's basically what I just shared with you. I put it in the PowerPoint so that you would have that for your information. When you come to the meeting, I would like to ask you to bring your completed initial meeting form with you and also your ideas for your fieldwork project. But in the meantime, I'm going to share with you some information about each of those. Whoops. All right, this is a picture of the top portion of your initial planning meeting report. You'll notice that what you need to do here is to put the date of your meeting plus the dates of all the meetings that you're going to be observing, including school site council, PTA, DLAC or ELAC, board meetings, district committee meetings, or school leadership team meetings or SST meetings. You'll also notice that 3 of these meetings have an asterisk beside them. Those 3 meetings must be written up on a leadership observation form. So here's what that looks like. It was included in the email I sent you. So you do not have to write a whole lot on any of these. As you can see, here's the school site council meeting report. You just fill in the blanks: demographics, grade level, school location, date, time, the number of people present. You briefly describe the event, and you make a note of the leadership skills that were observed. These leadership observations are due March 31st, 2016. However, you can, once you've completed them all, you can upload these observations to www.inductionsupport.com at any time. They will not be evaluated until March 31st, 2016, but you can upload them whenever you're ready. One person asked me if we needed to attach any agendas or any other artifacts, and you do not. This is done on the honor system. You write it up and you turn it in, and we believe that you will indeed go to those meetings and make those observations. This is the second part, the bottom part of that initial meeting report form. And here is where you want to write down your ideas about your fieldwork project. What is important about your fieldwork project is that it be something you really want to do, something you're passionate about, something that you think will have a big impact. It needs to be something that will keep your interest for the duration of the program. Now, what I will be doing in our initial meeting is going over this fieldwork project proposal with you. However, I'm going to do the going over of it here in this screencast, and you can bring your questions. Notice right away that your fieldwork project proposal, the actual proposal, is not due until December 31st. It's not due until December 31st. However, if you want feedback on it, you are welcome to send it in, and I will do my best to get feedback to you as quickly as I can. Ultimately, none of these projects will be approved until I've had the chance to go over them with Judy Levinson from Orange County. They are the ones who are responsible to the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing for what happens in the program, and so we will need to have her approval as well on these. Notice at the top it says you need to put the title of your fieldwork project. That could very well be the very last thing you do, but you do need to have an idea of what it's going to be. It asks you for the data that you use to determine the need for the fieldwork project. We want to know why you're doing it. Why is it important? What is going on at your school or in your work context that would suggest you need to do this project? The next thing is the driving question. This is the most important thing that I want you to consider, because if you can really complete this driving question, then you will have a real good handle on your fieldwork project. So the driving question is, how might the implementation of the action would be your project, what you're going to do in your project, improve, engage, or impact, and you'll notice that's a specific target focus group. That could be students, it could be parents, it could be other teachers, it could be a specific group of parents, a specific group of teachers, a specific group of students, but you have to be really specific in what you put there. So how might the implementation of your project improve, engage, or impact this target focus group in the area of focus? In other words, what is it you want to improve? Do you want to improve literacy? Do you want to improve parent engagement? Do you want to improve planning practices of teachers? What would you like to improve? As measured by, and that's the key part, you have to be able to measure it. So your project, again, if you can fill out this driving question with specifics in each of those blanks, you're well on your way. Notice in the fieldwork project design abstract here, you need to include how you identified the need, how you will secure stakeholder buy-in, and who will comprise the team that you will lead in the implementation of this project. Now you have a small place to fill in there, at least on the form itself, but these are big questions you need to think about. Now, because there are a lot of things that need to be considered, OCDE created a graphic organizer that we can use to be sort of a guide, a place where we can take notes and think out what we want to end up putting on the fieldwork proposal. So what I'm going to do right now is go through the graphic organizer. And just know this, if you can fill out everything in the graphic organizer, it will transfer over very nicely to the fieldwork proposal. Okay, so remember, this is a note-taking guide. And notice that the first page of the graphic organizer has information that very much mirrors what we saw here on the fieldwork project proposal. The title, the data used to determine the need, the driving questions, the project need, and the project summary. All of those things are going to go there. All right, the second page of the graphic organizer asks for your leadership team, their names, their positions, and their roles and responsibilities. This is key information. The Preliminary Admin Services Credential Program is all about preparing you to lead adults. And if you're going to lead a project now, you need to be leading adults. So you need to know who your team members are. And when it says leadership team roles and responsibilities, this isn't the roles and responsibilities of their job, but their roles and responsibilities in relation to your project. What will these people be doing in terms of helping you with your project? The next page, you heard some of these questions. Stakeholder buy-in. The first thing you have to do is figure out who your stakeholders are. Your leadership team definitely are stakeholders. If you're serving students, they are stakeholders. If you're serving parents, they are stakeholders. If you want your administrators, your site administrators support, then that person is a stakeholder. So you need to think through who those stakeholders are. And then you need to figure out how you're going to enlist them in your project. How are you going to get them excited about what you're doing? The next box there is about communication methods. Now you probably know as well as anyone that communication can be the one thing that makes it very difficult to be successful in any project. So you need to be thinking about, how am I going to communicate with people? How often do I need to communicate with them? Do they need regular updates? Will we meet? How often will we meet? All of those kinds of things. It is important to keep everyone in the loop. I actually know someone who had a sign made that she put on her desk, and it says, "Who needs to know this?" That might be a good thing to just jot down somewhere and remember that that's a key part of your project. The next thing says leadership actions used during project implementation. When you write this up at the end, you will have a better idea of this because you will have done some leadership actions. But this is about thinking ahead. What do I need to do? So who do I need to inspire? Who do I need to enlist? That would be a leadership action. What do I need to challenge the process in some way? Is there some process or policy that I'm going to need to challenge in order to move forward? How am I going to help other people get on board and be able to do? Do I need to provide some training to folks? Those kinds of things. Even down to encouraging the heart. How am I going to celebrate successes? Those are all leadership actions. So you want to think about what you might need to do along those lines to get your project off the ground. Now, the last box on this page is project impact on student learning. Some projects are going to have a very direct impact on student learning. One of your colleagues is doing something on literacy. Well, it's going to be pretty simple because she's going to provide some pre-data about a certain group of students and their literacy scores, and then post-data. And there will be no problem connecting the project to student learning. But for others of you, the kind of project you're going to do, it's not going to be that easy. Another of your colleagues is going to be doing some work on instituting vertical planning at a high school, 9th through 12th grade, in a certain subject. So probably there will be some student impact or academic achievement impact, but it's going to take time to get it all in place and so forth. So while you may have some quantitative data, a lot of the data may have to do with teacher perceptions, student perceptions, and so forth. This is the kind of thing that we would need to discuss during the meeting probably and get input from other folks. How can you collect data on student learning? And if it's not quantitative, what kind of qualitative information could we get? And this reminds me right now that because your project is going to be approved sometime after the first of the year, you may not actually get started on it until around March, and then it would of necessity have to end about December of next year. So you have to think in terms of the timeline. How much information can I get? How much data can I collect? And what kind of data can I collect within that time frame? The next page on the graphic organizer has to do with the assessments. Now you can see there are 3 boxes, assessment 1, 2, and 3. There are lots of ways to use these boxes. It might be that you have 3 types of assessment and that you're going to use to gather data. The more data sources you have, the better. But you can also think of this in terms of not only the number of assessments, but how many assessments you're going to give along the way. Are you going to collect any benchmark data, like at the 2-month mark, the 6-month mark, something like that? It's going to depend on your project and what is appropriate for your project. So again, that's something we can discuss at your meeting. The last part of the fieldwork project proposal is to connect your project to the CAPES. I'm sure you remember that the CAPES are the standards that we are basing our curriculum on. And so in the CAPES, if you'll remember, there are 6 categories, and you see 4 of the categories here. Visionary leadership, instructional leadership, school improvement leadership, professional learning and growth leadership, and on the last page of that graphic organizer, you have organizational and systems leadership and community leadership. What you're being asked to do is to choose one of the CAPES from each of those categories and connect it to your project. So let me give you an example. Under visionary leadership, these are the 4 CAPES that are associated with that category. CAPE 1, developing and articulating a vision of teaching and learning. CAPE 2, developing a shared commitment to the vision. CAPE 3, leading by example to promote implementation of the vision. CAPE 4, sharing leadership with others. So let's say in your particular case, you decided, that CAPE 4 is the one that you would want to use. That you have found that in order to implement your vision, you have to share leadership with others. So then you need to make a connection to that. Or if you have found that your biggest job is to create a shared commitment among the people, your stakeholders, then that's what you would connect it to. So basically, you would just go into each of the categories, look at those CAPES, and see how they connect to your project. The picture that is on the screen now is the very end of that fieldwork project proposal, the page, the document actually, that you will turn in by December 31st. And at the very bottom of that document, it says, describe the leadership behavior defined by at least one of the CAPES for each of the 6 leadership categories. That's what I just showed you on the graphic organizer, okay? But also notice that at the bottom of this page, you have lots of signatures. The good thing is the cohort advisor and the program manager, both of those people are me, so that does reduce the number of signatures that you need. However, what I want you to see is that there does have to be approval and acceptance on everyone's part that this project is moving forward. Your site administrator needs to support it, OCDE needs to support it, we need to support it, and that is why we will be going over this with Orange County, and then we will, once you're approved, you can move forward. All right, so you know when your project is, when your meeting with me is, so please, when you come, bring that initial meeting planning form to the meeting with the dates for the leadership observations that you're going to do. Bring your ideas for the field work. If possible, look over that fieldwork proposal, look over that graphic organizer, and come prepared with some ideas. That way we can talk it over and get you going as soon as possible. I will see you soon. I think that's either October 14th or October 22nd, with a couple of you at some other times due to scheduling conflicts. So thank you so much for listening to this, and I look forward to meeting with you.